Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, new paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here 9 times a week, Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, as well as YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will take time to subscribe and click notifications so that when a new conversation is posted, you'll be notified and you'll be able to tune in, listen in, and learn, be entertained and inspired. A reminder that Choices, which is my book, 5 Steps for Life, it's available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle with Audible, soon to be released. We also ask that if you can support the work that we are doing financially, we do have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And when they ask for an email address to whom you're sending, please go to richard@richarddugan.com. That's the email address. If you go to richarddugan.com, there is also a link directly to PayPal so that you can send us whatever support you can. And we thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. We also ask that you take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. And with that, we now take you to our very special interview and guest here on Tell Me Your Story. And welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and it is a pleasure to be with you. As along with our very special guest, his name is Tom Matt. Tom Matt is with us, and he is going to talk to us today about the work that he is doing in the area that he is expert in, but he's also going to talk to us about his latest work. Tom, with Upsight Vision Consulting, welcome to the program.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Looking forward to having a discussion today.
And now Tom is a speaker consultant. He's with one of the one-of-a-kind gifts he has. He can literally see hidden patterns in the mind and that reveal blind spots. And this ability is called Upsight Vision. It came, well, I'll let you tell the story of where this came from, because I have what's called, I can see colors in numbers and letters. And I'm also looking for patterns all the time. Synesthesia, thank you. But I don't think that's what we're referring to here, is it?
No, that's a good question, because I thought the same thing. Because synesthesia is you can't control it. It just happens. Mm-hmm. What I do is controllable, right? So let me define upside vision. Okay. Upside vision is the ability to see and interact with holographic images that seem to be everywhere around us, right? I have developed this ability about 13 years ago after coming out of a severe mental health crisis and trouble with addiction. So it developed 13 years ago. And after that, as soon as it did, if anybody else, I can promise you, if any of your listeners, if this happened to anyone, the first thing you would do, you'd be like, why am I seeing these things? There must be something wrong with my brain. You'd go to a neurologist and you would make sure there was nothing clinically wrong with you. I did that because I told them, listen, I got clean and sober, but I'm still seeing these things. I'm still seeing them. So there's no tumors, lesions, stroke, no damage from drug use. The clinicians could not tell me, or still cannot tell me, what happened to my brain. The best they can say is something is rewired for you to be able to perceive these images, right? Mm-hmm. And I want to be very clear about this. They're not hallucinations when you think, wow, you're seeing something and you think it's real. I know these things are, well, air quotes, real. I don't know where they're coming from. I'm working with a team of scientists to figure this out. But I know they're not real. They're just like picking up a radio station, something like that. I'm picking something up in the atmosphere. And when I pick them up, not only can I see them, I can interact with them and change them with a thought. So once my attention is aligned with this thing, whatever it is, Let's say if it's just some random elephant, I can, as soon as I see it and my eyes are locked into it, I can say, wait, can I make that elephant ride a bicycle or drive a car? Once that happens, in fact, my brain does respond. And now we have a conversation with this plasma field, holographic field, biofield, whatever we want to call it now for this conversation. So that's what I'm doing. And the consulting part is this year I started realizing I can tune. I knew this over the course of the years, but I've really, really, really gotten good at it this year. I can tune into someone and pick up their biofield with their permission. And it's almost like I'm doing a waking dream analysis, right? I know it's different from mine, the same way I know your voice is different from mine, right? So I've been doing that. So that's a lot to unpack. I'm working with scientists, but hopefully that'll spark something for you to think about. We'll have a conversation around that.
Well, to me, it's fascinating because everybody has different kinds of abilities that they don't even know they have, which is extraordinary to me for that in that regard. And yet, yeah, how would you know? I mean, for example, I was born in this world into this world legally blind. I didn't know any different, you know. Until I started doing some questioning and research and so forth, and finally realizing, oh, that's what that is, and that's what that is, and so on and so forth. So it's like it's just a normal part of my life. My mother asked me once, Richard, have you ever had any supernatural experiences? And I said, well, if I have, I don't I wouldn't know that they were supernatural because they were just normal. It's
Good.
I look at Jesus, for example, and the examples in the New Testament of all of the miracles and the things that he did, right? To him, that was normal. That was his life. And in your case, it's the
Yeah.
same kind of thing. And when you talk about this, when you describe this, I sit here going, man, I could have used that over the last 5 months with this whole being evicted and moving into our new home and all that kind of stuff, because my mind was just, I couldn't keep up, and yet I had to keep moving. I couldn't get emotional. I couldn't spend any time, going over in the corner and grieving about losing our new home or what have you, and all these different things. I had to stay strong. I was the guy. I had to do, that particular mentality. So it seems to me like
Yeah.
you would
I
have
do.
really been able to help me through those phases that would have made it. I don't want to say necessarily easier, but at least I probably would have maintained. I don't know, maybe a stronger mental health, so to speak, mental and spiritual health.
Maybe. Yeah, no, both, because it's now, let's be clear. Right now it helps me stay grounded and I help people stay grounded. But back, as I said earlier, I did not always have this, right?
Right.
I was 49 years old. I had a business, an ad agency, and I had addiction issues before then, but I'd have long time sober, but I picked up again and everything went south and I literally lost everything.
Mm.
My book, Jesus Goes to Hollywood, A Memoir of Madness, is about the 1 year, almost to the date, where I lost everything, and it was my year of dark night of the soul, right? I even thought I was Jesus for a short time. That's why I called it that. But that bar was way too high to keep. But I was definitely unwell mentally. The drugs were affecting my brain. I walked out on my family, my kids, my business. I lost everything. But because one of the reasons, because of the love of my family and my spirituality and God, I got it back together. And when I came out, this was there, right? This was something cracked open in me. And when it weaved back together, this ability was there. Now, to your point about supernatural, I knew something was different. If I'd had this my whole life, I wouldn't have thought about it the same way. And as I've talked about this on podcasts, really interesting, people have come forward and say, oh, I've done this since I was a child. I can do this too. But they're not taught. No one is taught to do this. It's absolutely dismissed and says, people say, oh, don't tell people that. They'll think you're crazy. It's not common, but it's not, well, it's definitely not common, but it
Yeah.
does exist. And we're just starting to figure out what it is. Now, make no mistake, things have been going on like this through the centuries with people's special abilities and stuff, but I'm talking specifically seeing these holographic images.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if it's not something that you necessarily, well, you said you do this consciously, right now?
I shift my attention, and yeah, I do it constantly. Yeah, I sure do.
Okay. So if you're with somebody, do you ever just kind of pick up on it and you can either turn it on or off, or is it something
So
that you've got to prepare for? You've got to, I don't know, go through a process.
No, great question because like I said, I've done this for about 13 years actually, and
Hmm.
just this year I've started to do
Right.
it with individuals, tuning in and like having a conversation. But that's good, great question because over the past the past many years, I realized some of these holograms, like thought forms, tulpa thought forms, were coming from people. For example, if I would be in a room with somebody and they would bring up I would bring up a topic for I didn't even know why, and they would say things like, "Oh my gosh, that's what I'm talking about," or "I just thought about that." So I knew it was happening, right? Indirectly or incidentally, but I didn't really hone in on it till this year. I was like, "Wow, this is wild." I was in the elevator with the guy one time. He's like, "Well, can you see what?" He goes, "Dude, can you do it right now?" So didn't tune into him. I just did it, right? And I'm like, I'm seeing a brand new sports car in a showroom. And he pulls out his phone and he shows me, he's like, listen, I just bought this new sports car. So that's when I knew there was something extra, something extraordinary going on. So that's kind of how I knew I did it, but I just didn't tune into it until this year.
This has been an interesting year for all of us. You in particular, myself, my wife as well. Some extraordinary things have been happening. And it's funny, I'm a person of I look for patterns everywhere. Okay. I'm always trying to find a sequential thing. And we were living in Santa Barbara, California for the last 19 and a half years. And there's a theater called the Granada Theater. And it's a beautiful performing arts facility. And they had an acoustician come in and he placed tiles all over the walls and ceiling. And so I interviewed the man and we were in there and I was looking for patterns in the tiles, thinking, oh, they've all got to be pretty much the same. There were no two tiles exactly the same because of the science that he uses to create the tiles, to create the optimal audio experience, if you will. And that was real frustrating for me because I couldn't find a pattern. But when we go through
Mhm.
these extraordinary times, I'm looking for a series of sequential events that tell me, okay, you're going in the right direction. You're having the right kind of experience. And like this gentleman you mentioned with the car, you envisioned this a sports car, and he's actually looking at one. And it's to me, did it freak you out the first time, the very first time you had the experience, or was it because you were still in that addictive state that you saw the visions and so
So,
forth, but it was just what it was?
so another great question. So the first time I saw this was the last time I ever did drugs. Last time I ever did coke. So I'm on the couch, right? And I'm definitely high. And I look over and I saw these four images. And these are lit, and I'll describe what they look like in a minute, but I saw these four images. The first one was the back of a dinosaur. The second one was blood cells moving through a body. The third one was a slot machine. And the fourth one was the Grim Reaper. Now, for whatever reason, instinctively, even though I was high at the time, I said to myself, I do not have to be high to do this. I can see this, and I do not have to be. This is not from the drugs. So, and that was the last time I ever used. I got my life back together, and one of the reasons was I knew this was a calling, a spiritual calling, saying, "Listen, your path is to learn about these things, learn more about these things." Okay, now. What these things look like, I don't know if there was a mini series on on Netflix about 5, 6 years ago called The Queen's Gambit. In that miniseries, the protagonist lays on the bed and she looks at the ceiling and she has the ability to see these chess pieces because she's a chess master and move them around and plan her next move. That's kind of what they look like. They're a hologram of the one color tint. If you haven't seen that, many people have seen Tony Stark in the Iron Man movies where he is in his office,
Yeah.
holograms around him. That's another description. Now, even though, and this is why they're more dreamlike than real. This is why you can't be sure it's going to be exactly like seeing with the sports car for the guy. It's like a dream, even though they're clear and in focus. It doesn't mean they're true. Right? In the very beginning, I realized, okay, these things are as clear as day, but they're not true. I can't win the Kentucky Derby. I can't see a football game and pick the winners. In fact, it does the opposite of that. I almost could do whatever it shows me to do the opposite. But the point is, it's not for that. It's for something else, and I'm still trying to figure out what it's for. And I'll say one other thing before I let you respond, because it really speaks to what you're talking about, the patterns. When I was having my dark night of the soul, I wrote about this in my book. I had one synchronistic experience that I could not explain if I had all day. I'm walking out of a hotel. I'm listening to Bruce Springsteen's version of Blinded by the Light. Most people know Manfred Mann, but Bruce Springsteen wrote the song, and every lyric in the song, it was as if a director blocked the thing in front of me. One of the words is boulder on the shoulder, and there's a gardener with a boulder on his shoulder. Another one was the verse is feeling kind of older, and there's a man walking with a cane. I turned my head, and it said Deuce Coupe in the song, and this one drives down the road. I was in awe. It was like 35 seconds of this blocked director scene, and it was a pattern that didn't make sense to me because it was so real. It was like somebody was making fun of me or telling me, you're connected to more than you ever know. See, it was a negative experience when it first happened because I was in such a bad brain state. Now I look back on it as one of the biggest blessings of my life because I do know we're connected to so much more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the pattern still happens to this day, Richard.
It's remarkable. Give us your website so people can find out more about Upsight Vision.
It's it's tom-matte.com. I'm going to date myself. I guess we still say www, but I don't think about it. tom-matte.com, matte.com.
So it's Tom dash Matt
It's a dash.
.com. Okay. So
matte.com.
And we'll be linked to that website as well as we continue talking with Tom Matte here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, Reverend Dr. D. And Tom, if I was to ask you right now to I don't know what the right phrase here is, but use this Upsight Vision, do you have people ask questions, or is it kind of like when my wife and I used to attend this medium, it was a group gathering where we would meet and this woman would channel this entity called Equinox, and you'd get one free question, but you then would pay a small little fee. It was like $10-15, and it was just to help them defray costs. And a lot of times people say, Equinox, you give the standard greeting of Mayama. Do you have a message for me? As opposed to, what about my love life, or what about my new job, or when am I going to be moving, or those kinds of things. How does that work with an individual in terms of the promptings for your visions, your insights?
Okay, so I tell people this is not mind reading. You can't think of a thought like an animal, like a frog, and I see it. That doesn't happen. And it's not your deepest, darkest secrets, right?
Okay.
It seems to be this middle ground, this waking dream state that I tap into. With your permission, we have a conversation. One of the rules is you have to give me permission, and you're okay with me describing what I see as I see it. Now, to the same point about the dream, these can be as sometimes very meaningful, like many dreams point you in the right direction, but sometimes I've done readings, they're like, I'm not sure what it is. Now, there's certain archetypes and symbols and animals that show up that are very meaningful for the people. I say if you have an experience with me, and this is I've done many business people. I've done it seems to resonate with business owners and musicians and the creative types like that. I tell people it's like the IKEA furniture of this space. I give you the tools, I give you the furniture, but there's definitely still work that needs to be done, right? With a trusted loved one, an advisor, a friend, a therapist. These things take a minute to unpack. Sometimes I'll do a reading. Let me give you an example, right? I did a reading for a guy who was curious about a business deal that was going to go through. And, and his wife kept showing up. And he's like, well, she has nothing to do with the business, with the business deal. And I'm like, okay, that's great. But there's something there that you probably need to look at and work with, right? It was, and I said, you say it has nothing to do with it, but you might want to talk to her about this because she might have a belief or a thought around this that you haven't related, you haven't even thought about. So those are the kinds of things that happen. You can, so the answer, you can set an intention. What shows up is going to show up. Let me be very clear about that. So I want these, I do them in 5-minute increments and then we talk about it. I want them to resolve, but just like a dream, something could normal be happening and everyone turns into marshmallows and it can be very frustrating for me, certainly. As long as they know that can happen, we go back into it and we see what shows up again and again. And again, just like patterns, things that come back are the most meaningful because either A, they're not paying attention to it in the way the universe is trying to guide them to, or B, they're obsessed with it and maybe something else they need to, have a direction another way. Those are just two examples.
As you're speaking, I'm getting this emotional spot in my chest here, lower chest. I don't know where that's coming from because I'm thinking about what you're talking about. I'm hearing the words you're saying and thinking that this would be so profound for people to be able to connect their lives to their purpose, to the reason why they're even here, whether it's their relationships, their job, what have you. I do an interview with regularly on a Wednesday at 9 a.m. with a woman. Her name is Lumari of lumari.com. And we have conversations about compassion and connectedness and all kinds of different subjects. And we just free flow. It's a free flowing conversation, just like this is. But she said something to me on the program that this week that really I chuckled at, and I had to have her repeat it. And she's intuitive. She has that gift, if you will. And she said, the house that you're living in right now, that you just moved into, the house likes you. And the house says you're cute. And I thought, well, okay, you want to repeat that, please? What? And it wasn't because of my ego. It was like, did I hear you right? Did I hear you say that the house said I was cute? And I've never put a lot of stock into those concepts. I know my wife is concerned about her appearance, but but it was just so interesting that she just piped in with that during the program, But she also knows too that my wife and I have been going through it, between the landlord and between the process of buying a house in this day and age. It's unbelievable. I mean, but that moment when I felt that welling up inside here as you were talking, do you get input from the people that you work with or you consult with? That's a better word, I think. Do you get that kind of feedback from them?
Yeah, so another great question. You're just keeping coming at me. I love this. So what's really interesting about this is that when I started doing this, I was a little naive, right? I have this ability. Now there's people that do this, intuitives that have done it all the time, mediums, all these different things. I am different from them because this is different, but it's not completely different. It's certainly the same thing, tuning into another human being. I soon realized very quickly when I had a bunch of these come in at once that by the end of the half hour or the hour, especially the hour if they're longer, but even the half hour, I will have that same frequency as the person I'm doing the reading. So, in other words, if at the end it's been an emotional one and it's a positive, I typically feel the same way. I literally well, I shouldn't say literally, typically feel like the person I've done the readings with by the end of it, with them leading the emotional, with them being the leader. So if they're stuck, I'm feeling stuck. Now, the reason that's cool, it's cool is because it's helpful,
Mhm.
right? It's helpful for them to know that, because some people are like they're stuck, they don't know why. Visually, some things come up. So yes, that definitely does happen, and it took me a minute to realize that. And I don't want to say I have to manage; you just have to work with it. And it's a bonus thing that I didn't know was going to happen from just the visuals, the emotional connection I have with the person. But once we're disconnected, it's done. It's like any conversation, right? It's not like I carry this with me, right? And it's not like you would carry this with you. You may have a dream about it. That's certainly happened before. But yeah, there's without question this quantum entanglement, no matter the distance of a connection with another human being, and it's fun and extraordinary, and it really makes sense if you think about it.
Yeah. Oh no, I am just blown away by our ability to do that as human beings, to have that part of us in that experience. So we're talking with Tom Matt, and Tom dash Matt matte.com is the website that we will be linked to as we continue on Tell Me Your Story. The conversation we're having today with our very special guest Tom Matt is wonderful. I'll tell you that in the last few interviews that I have done, Tom, I have gotten emotional, because I think that my wife and I, we don't say that we've been broken or that we've reached the breaking point, but that we've reached that space where we're in our new home. We're not homeless. That was one of her biggest fears when we got the eviction notice back in June. Are we going to wind up homeless? And I said, no. And that we weren't going to move from where we were living until we had a place to go. There was no way I was going to, where we were going to go. And it's as if now the floodgates are being allowed to be open so that we can begin to experience the life that we've been given. I've been very strongly moved in my direction as my life's purpose. And now that my wife is beginning to regain her health, she's starting to find hers. She's starting to do more, and that's exciting. And then we're meeting our neighbors. I think that's one of the other things I want to talk to you about is community. You through the work that you do, and it may be hard for some people to see, you are fostering community, not only with yourself and the people that you consult with, but I would venture that there have got to be communities that I mean, you say you've been doing this for 13 years, but this has been the year, if you will. And I'm wondering if there are people who are starting to maybe connect through your consulting work. I'm not, I'm sure there's confidentiality and all that. But what are your thoughts in that regard to community?
So two things. First of all, yeah, two things. Great segue. So I not only am I doing this, there's science behind this, right? A
Mhm.
lot of times when this happens, when people make these statements, people believe it, but there are many skeptics out there. As a logical business owning person, one of the first things I wanted to do after getting a clean bill of health from the clinicians, I emailed hundreds of academics, neuroscientists across the globe, every university you could think of. I said, listen, my brain does this. I want to get in a lab. I can reproduce it on demand. I get me an MRI or an EEG, hook me up, and let's measure my brain waves to let you know there's something going on that's extraordinary. It's not a vivid mind's eye. It's not a great imagination. It is external. My eyes get tired. I can do smooth pursuit eye movements. My pupils dilate when I do it. Something extraordinary is going on. In 2023, Dean Radin with the Institute of Noetic Science got back to me and he said, you know what, we're maybe curious about this. I talked to his science team. I went out to California and we did 200 randomized tests to difference between a memory recall and a vivid mind's eye and seeing these upside visions team. The brain waves across all brain states were different. The two biggest ones were the alpha brain state and the theta brain state. Now, there is an academic paper coming out this year that talks about this and talks about all the results about it, and in the talks about the different changes across those states. The reason I'm saying that is because the paper's coming out. Now, I started talking about this ability last year on podcasts. When I did, I would get emails and people would reach out to me and saying, I have it. And that is where the community started. Right? The community started to grow. People, I would say, sign up. I'm collecting names to make sure there's other people. And I call it a newsletter. It's just a monthly update as what's going on. I have thousands of names of people that claim to have this to one degree or another. I wrote a free PDF that you can get now on my website called the 8 Stages of Upsight Vision. These are the stages that I went through to get this ability. Not in order, but if you read it, again, it's free, you download it, you'll understand. Now, when people say they have it, they don't necessarily have it to the degree I do. And I compare it to singing. Everybody can sing, but everybody can't be Adele or Frank Sinatra. This is kind of the same thing, right? And they might even experience it a little bit different. So the community is huge. So the community about people having this and they feel safe to talk about it because people have said, again, I've heard that numerous times. The community about people that have this ability to some degree or another is just growing. The people that I'm connecting with and doing these readings for, that is a different community, and it's a really interesting way. That's the people that know, like you and I, that there's so much more and they want to learn how to navigate it because maybe we weren't given the tools that we might have had growing up because it's shunned because of our religion, our family, or whatever. So yeah, there's a bunch of different communities, and that, Richard, is a blessing. And I feel like that is my mission for, the foreseeable future, to build this community.
I'll tell you what, we need it now more than ever. It's really on the one hand, it's an unfortunate situation that we, as a country, let alone globally, find ourselves in, where our opinions, our beliefs matter more than fellow human beings. And it's really unfortunate. I have never foisted on anybody during these programs that my beliefs, my philosophy is the right one. My eldest sister, my late sister, and I had a conversation once where she was challenging my salvation, okay? And I said, see, here's the thing. I am still learning, growing. My beliefs of yesterday are not my beliefs of today, are not my beliefs of tomorrow, because I'm still here. I'm breathing, I'm learning, I'm experiencing, I'm meeting new people, getting new insights. And it's kind of like what Greg Braden said on this program years ago after he wrote his book, The Healing Power of Belief. And he said that right now we believe, but one day we will know. But we don't know now. Yeah. Unfortunately, people take their beliefs and they place it in that category of knowing. You don't. I don't even know that there's an afterlife. I mean, there are people, I know people who are afraid to die because they're afraid there's nothing after this. And I say, well, my belief is that there is something else, because it doesn't make sense that we're going through all of these things like what you're going through, especially in helping and consulting with people, and that there's nothing after this. It makes no sense logically. However, if there is nothing else, I'll never know. That's just the way it'll be.
Right?
Yeah. I want to go ahead. You have something you want to share.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, and what's really interesting about it. I've been a believer all my life. I was raised Catholic, went to Catholic school, but I'm not a good Catholic, one of those things. But I believe in Jesus. That's my thing, right? After this, my belief is stronger, and my belief on all the things that have happened, it actually made it stronger. And even the stories of the Bible, and somebody comes to me and tells me a miracle, I absolutely believe that miracle, because if this happened to me and my brain changed and the way I walk through the planet Earth now can happen to me, it can happen to anybody. I mean, as I said, I know I'm not the only one. So this, in a really interesting way, has opened up to mind for the possibilities of more. And most important, or for me anyway, is I know I am connected to the Creator. I feel it. Like you talked about the feeling in your chest earlier, that you and mind and your connection. When it's pure, without a person I'm connecting to, sometimes it's like this bliss connected to the creator. And those moments, I cherish those. And they come out of nowhere for no reason. They just come and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna ride this as long as it lasts.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We're talking with Tom Matt, tom-matte.com. That's tom-matte.com. And you're listening to Tell Me Your Story. The extraordinary experiences that we have, Tom Matt, who is joining us here, he's the author of Jesus Goes to Hollywood. There's a movie in there somewhere, I think. Great movie title it would be. One of the things, I worked for 15 years in my early career for a Christian radio station. And one of the things that came out of that experience was that there would be people who would call into some of these programs that we did live, and they would share some of their experiences, whether they saw Jesus or they experienced Mary or they felt the moving to do this, that, or the other thing. I mean, I still remember there was sort of I don't know if I want to call it a craze or fad, but nonetheless, there was this period where there was, it was called, I think it was called like holy or divine laughter. You know, I mean, you just broke out in laughter. You just started laughing just for no reason whatsoever, which actually is perfectly okay. And the thing that bothered me more than anything else was some of these people would call up with these experiences, and their experiences were discounted because there was nothing in the book or the 9 dots that supported it. And on this program, on one of the programs I did many years ago here for Tell Me Your Story, I interviewed a born-again fundamentalist evangelical Christian who practiced, are you ready for this? Out-of-body experiences. He induced them and would travel around. And of course, I asked him, first of all, did you ever not want to come back? He said, oh, no, I always wanted to come back. I says, okay, well, first of all, your critics are going to say, well, but where in the Bible does it sanction you doing that? And of course, he said, well, as far as I know, nowhere. But he did it anyway. And that's one of the things that I loved about some of the people that I met during that period and since, who didn't care whether it was within the norm, whether it was part of the doctrine and dogma. It was part of what changed their lives. Now, you and I are similar in that I was born and raised Catholic too. But I've been searching, not for anything in particular, just searching. I'm curious. I've learned about a lot of different philosophies from Judaism and Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam. I was a Baha'i for a year and a half. Metaphysics, I consider myself a metaphysician as well as Reverend Dr. D. And I think that's one of the things that I'd like for you to address a little bit. And that is that if there are people who are listening or having these experiences, whether they be similar to yours or other types of out of the norm, that it's okay, that there's nothing wrong with you.
I'd love to address that. Yeah, I would love to address that. So I wrote a blog post for the Institute of Noetic Science. They're the people that did the brain research on me, right? And it's called, Is Upsight Vision a Psychic Ability? Right? Now that makes people real nervous. And I compared it to, and I said how it relates to remote viewing, lucid dreaming, telepathy, and one other thing I can't recall right now. The point was, though, even though it's related to those things, it is not those things. Mm-hmm. Something changed in me physiologically to give me this ability. That's not religion. That is something that happened, right? It's almost like I can access, and this certainly is in the Bible with Joseph and the Technicolor Rainbow, the ability to see dreams, like I said, waking dream analytic. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. In fact, or bad. I feel, and this has honestly been my experience, that this is a calling from our Creator to let people know that this is okay. Mm-hmm. This is not a scary, witchy kind of thing. This is okay for us. And here, this actually may be the scariest part. We may need this to communicate with each other in the future because I don't know why. That's what I feel like. This is something we are going to need an extra way to communicate for one reason or another. You can take that any way you want. Um, that's why I don't think there's anything to be afraid of with this or fearful of it, and you should look into it. Now, that's going to be very hard for somebody living in a small town and everyone's fundamentalists and they're going to be condemned to hell for saying they do it. But thank God for the internet and other things like that, that they can go somewhere and say, okay, this makes sense. This makes sense. And there is, again, this science around it. So no, that's why I want to build a community. I hope I answered your question because that's a lot and it's hard to, put on one person.
Oh no, I understand.
You
And no,
know?
you did. And it's so important that people do not discount their experiences. I mean, I even think of people who have had these, quite honestly, the alien abductions. They have been changed, real or not. They are not the same person they were before this experience, and you cannot take that away from them because now you're taking away a part of who they are. It's the same thing as if, regret, a useless emotion, because regret basically says, if only I could go back to that time and space and and make a different choice and then come back here. Well, the problem is if you could and then you came back, you wouldn't be the person that you were before you left to go back in time to change that experience. It wouldn't be. Or for that matter, you may have altered your history to the point where maybe you didn't survive a few years later. And so you don't get to come back
Yeah.
here. I mean, so that's why I say that regret is, it's like, hey, we made our choices and we need to be responsible for and accept where we are. I mean, I was thinking about that very thing, and this is the thing that really bugs me is when I say things, or for example, my book, Choices, 5 Steps for Life. When we got that notice on June 7th that we had to be out by the end of August, I wanted to play the victim, saying, well, this isn't fair. You can't do this, blah, blah, blah. But then I had to realize, well, now, wait a minute, hold on. You and your wife made the choice to move from Phoenix. You found this place. You chose to live here. And so whatever events followed, those are on you. Those are your responsibility. What the landlord does is also hers, but you made the choice. So that means that there's got to be something bigger and better for you beyond this point. And so I had to sort of eat my words of a sort and then say, okay, so now what are we going to choose to do next? And continue to take responsibility and accept the results of those choices, not as good or bad. And that's the other thing you were talking about earlier in terms of this isn't about good and bad. This is just what is as far as the universe turns. I mean, we take a look through the James Webb telescope, for example, and then we look at the universe flying around and things exploding and crashing and this and that and the other. We do the same thing on the subatomic level through an electron microscope. We see the same kinds of things. And what do? We go, ooh, ah, wow, that's cool. We're awed. We're awed, right? But when we get to this level where
Yeah.
you and I exist, there's judgment instead of that's just what is. This is just life. It's neither good nor bad, right?
Yeah, you know what? The word awe is a great word because everyone has experienced. I hope everyone's experienced it. The
Yeah.
first, and I want to piggyback on that. The first time I saw these images, I wasn't scared. I was in awe. Right? I was like, and I knew it was from the creator. Again, I don't know. You know what I mean? You can't. If it was, we find out, if somebody goes to the future and said, "Oh, guess what? We create this technology, and the things you were picking up was like a radio station from the future." And it's not going to be the case. But if it was, I wouldn't say, "Oh, that's wild." I could still be awed by it, the same way you can be awed by anything. But my point is that I was awed by it. So I feel, and my belief is it came from the creator. Now I see holograms of the things you're talking about, these non-human intelligence, these aliens. Now, I'm sitting there sometimes thinking, I'm like, wow, is this somebody's thought? Is somebody thinking of a gray alien? Or is this gray alien, where does this gray alien hologram come from? I have no answers to those questions, but I can tell you this, they show up. Right. And here's another thing. And this is where you have questions about the nature, not the nature of good and evil, just the part about being scared. Some of the things that show up here are scary. Right. Anything one human being can do to another has shown up. And I don't look at those. If I see something that's ugly or sad or something or horrible, I just look away. I'm like, well, that has come through like a cloud. I don't know why I picked that up. I don't know where it came from, but I certainly don't have to pay attention to it. Just like you don't have to stand there if somebody's yelling at you, you can turn and walk away. So there's so many pieces of this that need to be explored because it's so new. And and that's where I see us moving forward. Wait, I wanted to say one other thing. I know I spoke a lot about your question. Oh, about regret, right? Mm-hmm. If you don't regret, you can't learn. Regret is holding on to wishing you can change the past. It's like, okay, I made this mistake, and you said this earlier. I'm learning. I'm continuing to learn. Let's try to make the right choice. My wife and I have an agreement. We can have a pity party for like a day. We give each other permission to feel sorry for ourselves for a day. We'll help each other. Like tomorrow, this is not acceptable, and we're like, but I'm in this now, and we have fun with it. Because you can't help. I mean, I can't. I'm still in this place where if something sucks, it's bad, then it's going to be. And sometimes I want to feel sorry for myself. There's maybe a payoff, but any extended time, no way. Neither one of us is victims. And if I was a victim, you could be, no, that's not true. You absolutely can be a victim of a robbery or many things, but to live in that space is I can't even imagine it. It would be a horrible, horrible existence. I really do feel empathy for people that choose that or don't know any better. So that one of the things my wife and I had to deal with 13 years ago was we lost everything because of my addiction and my mental unwellness, but you know what? By staying together, by building the family and help by staying together, by letting the children see that mom and dad could work through this, and we really do love each other. Something was wrong with dad. He got better, and we kept the family together. I think showing them that now they're grown men. One lives in New York and the other one lives in Charleston. They have us living through example to take forward for their lives. I am as proud of that as I am of anything.
That's wonderful. Tom Matt's my guest. You are listening to Tell Me Your Story. I'm Reverend Dr. D. Tom Matt is with us. Tom-Matte, MATTE.com is the website, and the book is entitled Jesus Goes to Hollywood, which is in essence your memoir of your past up to this point in terms of the experience you've been describing to us as the Upsight Upsight Vision that you have been talking to us about throughout this program, and it's fascinating to me. When did you realize you needed to put this down into, we'll call it print? You needed to share this.
No. So the book is about, it's important. The book is about the 1 year of my life, right? From the year, almost the year to the date, that 2012, when I snapped and walked down on my family and my business, and then when I kindly got it back together. And during that year, I want to be clear, emptied my bank account, walked out on my business, walked out on my family, homeless, arrested. It was as bad as anything can be that most people can go through. A lot of consequences of that. Coming out of it. So it's a memoir about the horrible year and how I survived it. Upsight Vision was the result of that. Somehow there was a spiritual thing, the spiritual element to it, a physiological change that I've since learned to work with and deal with. Okay. So that's what that book is about. Actually, you asked a question and I wanted to find that, but I can't remember what your question was. Can you remind me?
having to do with why you thought it was important to share this, in this case, this particular year with the general public. What was the impetus behind that?
Okay, so first part, it was a cathartic. I had to get it out. I knew I didn't want to repeat it. I want to make sure it was in paper, and I wanted to make sure that this was all down. I could never live it, and I wanted to forget it, but also say, listen, we did it, or I did it. It's in paper. It's in writing. Almost like a mea culpa. I'm guilty. All these things I did that were bad because I am no longer that person. But did happen. The other reason, a friend of mine had a small studio in Atlanta, where I live, and he talked about making it into a movie. He was going to do that. That never happened, but that was the catalyst for it. And then the other thing too is I wanted to write down. I knew there was an element, something was changed in me, and I had this ability, and I wanted to make sure I knew where I was before I had this ability and how it changed. Because I know I'm not the person I was then, and I don't want to forget that. Oh, wait a minute. Not only the horrible things that happened, just the person I was is different. So I wanted to have it for a number of reasons, and then even for let people know that if they're going through something like this, you can get through it, believe it or not. Because when you're in that space, you think there's nothing. When you're down like I was, you don't think it's hopeful. And I know a lot of people have written me emails saying that they got that out of it, which I'm grateful for as well. So a number of reasons.
Well, I'm glad you wrote it. I love the conversation we've been having here on the program, and this is just an extraordinary experience for people to learn about, and is something that can be taught to other people. I mean, you had an experience that opened this up for you, but do you now know how it happened? You now know how it happened, and you can share it and teach it to others, or is it something that, at least for the time being, it's just yours and you're just giving them the insights?
Yeah, so I have a FAQ questions on my website, and the last one is, do I teach this? And the answer is no. And the reason is because I still don't think I'm an expert, right? I don't think I've mastered this enough to teach people. So I do not teach it. I tell people they can play with it by themselves. You can play. You don't need a teacher to get your to play with this. Now that said, eventually, I do believe I will be teaching this. I believe there'll be enough people and there'll be some kind of classes offered, but right now, not yet.
Well, we're glad that you have shared it with us here on the program. I'm curious as to, if, let's just say, I was to connect with you, contact you, say, hey, I would really like a session with you. I guess that would be what you'd refer to. Um, what kind of preparation do I need to do? And then, of course, I would venture you can do this over Zoom or whatever other video platform is available to do that. What kind of protocol process is there?
So we definitely do it over Zoom. It doesn't matter where you are in the world or the country. There's really no preparation you need. Just come with an open mind now, and kind of prepared for a conversation, because this is not just me reading this. We have a conversation in between it, and you need to take part in it. But be prepared to have a conversation, right? It's not like I could just tell you what's there, but it's two intelligent people talking about what these things might mean, knowing that, again, IKEA furniture, you will go back and talk to a loved one and say, hey, this is what the reading was. What do you think about this? To like a loved one, mentor, partner, a therapist, whatever, teacher. Or you could put it into AI and ask AI about the symbolism that comes up, because all kinds of symbolism come up all the time. And it's different I never know what to expect, right? Sometimes there's themes like Mary Poppins. I found this very weird, and I just talked about this. Mary Poppins has come up. There was like a month where she came up with a bunch of different people. I found that really interesting. Sometimes there's an archer, right? Sometimes there's a Scorpio, like Scorpion or Scorpio. There's no theme that's consistent. Except maybe you could say animals. Yeah, there's that would be the theme, and it's metaphor. Let's be clear. These things are metaphorical. Wait, I want to say one other thing. That said, sometimes there's this wild precognitive element where I've got an email back and she said, this woman said, the scene you described, it just happened to me today. Right. And that blows my mind. Or sometimes I'll describe something and the woman will say, that's literally what I did yesterday when I was at the store. So those things happen. And it makes sense, though, if it's radiating from a person's brain, that it would be in there somewhere at the quantum level, or whatever, this plasma field, or whatever this Akashic record, this book of life, if we want to use the language around the Bible, whatever this is. It's more than we know, and we're just beginning to scratch the surface of how we can communicate on this. But I truly believe, Doctor, it's the future.
I'm going to ask you this question. You probably answered it somewhere in the interview, in the conversation. Um, what is the bottom line, if shall we say, I don't want to say end result, but after a session with you, what is your goal or the purpose behind your working with someone, consulting with someone in this regard? What is it that you hope that you and or they will achieve?
I want them to look at their problem or issue with a new perspective. Not only that, realize that there could be a solution with it they might not have even ever thought about. New perspective and a solution they might not have thought about. Those two things come right out of top of mind.
And I will tell you, folks, if you've listened to this program for any length of time, you know that that is our goal. We want you to take a different look. Tom, we use the analogy of an event taking place, and there's a circle made up of points. And we ask the listeners and viewers to step on one of those points and then move around that circle to as many points as they have time for to get a different perspective of that event that's going on inside that circle. So you are, without a question, right up our alley, and I thank you so much for sharing this time with us and for doing the work that you're doing. It's just incredible.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you today, Doctor.
I have three final questions that I ask all of my guests, and I will ask those of you in just a moment. But first, I want to thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We're here on Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are also podcasting on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. And we're on YouTube where you can watch these conversations, and we hope you will subscribe and click notification. Please go to Amazon and get a copy of my book, beg your pardon, Choices, 5 Steps for Life. It is available in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle. And we also ask that if you can, leave us a tip. We'd greatly appreciate that. It helps to defray some of the costs. And our PayPal account is our tip jar. And there are links on the homepage at richarddugan.com to both Amazon for the book and PayPal for any kind of a tip you can. And finally, a question that we ask all the time, but we'll put it in this context, Tom. We ask people to take time during this decade of perfect vision to spend time in that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. With all that being said, we go to our final 3 questions for a very special guest. And the first of those is, who is Tom Matt?
Survivor and thriver. Is that it? Quick. That's it. Survivor and thriver. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay. What gets you up in the morning?
The ability to connect with people and have sessions with Upsight and try to build this community. We spoke to it earlier.
Mm-hmm. And finally, what was your best day?
Mhm. Oh my gosh, too many to name. Wedding, birth of my kids, too many to name. But I'm gonna leave those. Yeah, wow, that's hard. Future, it's in the future. Boom, that's good. That's safe. Future. So many in the future, I can't even begin to name them.
Okay. Well, Tom, once again, thank you so much for joining us here on the program. We look forward to connecting with you again and having a further conversation with you. And we thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to Lal. Jeanette, I am still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I'll see you on the other side. Mike, thanks for letting me be in your life and being in mine. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.